It is said that he was born in Mecca in the year 571 AD, which is the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, the year of the elephant. The elephant refers to the attempt to attack and destroy the Kaaba by that army of the Abyssinians that had elephants in there. So this is called Amul Fil, the year of the elephant. It is very interesting that when his grandfather learned about his birth, his mother Amina sent to him, and he came very, very happy. It is said that he took the baby that is to the Kaaba. He prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the idols. This is documented that he prays to Allah and thanked him, and he called him Muhammad. Historian says that this name is unknown amongst the Arabs. It is not very much used. It is the praiseworthy that he chose his name for him. Also very interesting, because again of this purity of Bedouin life, the families of nobility did not raise their children in Mecca. They thought that the air is impure and the environment from a moral standpoint is impure. And so they always send them out to the desert to live with the family, grow until they are 6, 7, 10 years old, and then come back. And there were reasons to do that. It's really the healthy environment and also the purity of the Arab customs and the purity of the Arab language, the purity of the speech, they used to call it. And that's why when you look at Rasulullah ﷺ and you read his hadith, it's beautiful. And so this is the reason. And so he was entrusted to this woman called Halima from the tribe of Bani Sa'd. It's very interesting, a lot of details here in this story that no woman wanted him. These women who used to take these children and get money in exchange for raising them. But because Rasulullah ﷺ was orphan, when they asked, they said he was orphan. Nobody wants to touch him. And he's raised by his grandfather. And his grandfather has so many children. So how could he be of any use? How much could he pay? And so they were looking for the people of the rich, the children of the rich. And so, subhanAllah, Halima narrated, this woman, she said he was left last. Nobody wanted him. And she took him. And then she narrates here that her entire household changed in fortune when she accepted Muhammad ﷺ. From the time she took him, she said the mule that she was riding was so weak when they came into Mecca that as soon as they were taking the ride back, that mule was transformed in strength and speed. The flocks of sheep that she had, it was a year of drought, they had nothing to eat, she could not get anything. She said as soon as we tried to milk them, milk started pouring out like we have never seen before. The husband of Halima noticed this, and he asked her, who is this child that you brought today? She said, Wallahi, he is no one. He is an orphan that I picked that nobody wanted. And so, subhanAllah, here it is related that when he reached apparently the age of 4 or 5, apparently his family wanted him back. And they were afraid. Halima was afraid. So what she said, we then took him back to his mother, requesting her earnestly to have him stay with us and benefit by the good fortune and blessings that he had brought to us. And there was apparently a disease in Mecca. And so they argued against not keeping him because of the disease in Mecca. And that was in their favor. So she said, we got the blessing of keeping him a few more years. When he also, very important, this incident in the Seerah is that when he was with Halima, apparently there was this incident which is called in Arabic Hadith al-Shaq al-Sadr, the event of the opening of the chest. It is reported that the kids that were playing with Muhammad in this desert land, they saw Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, coming down, ripping Muhammad's chest open, taking out the heart, extracting blood clot out of it, and said this was the part of shaitan in you. He then washed it with the water from Zamzam, restored it to its place, and the boys came running to Halima and said, verily Muhammad has been murdered. They all rushed out and found him all right, and his face was white. This is the narration from this time, and this is Hadith al-Shaq al-Sadr. It is recognized as authentic. This is in Hadith Muslim as being true, that Allah had sent Jibreel to do this, to cleanse the Prophet ﷺ out, to prepare him for the acceptance of revelation. And when he came back, Halima was worried about the boy when they heard this incident, so she took him back to his mother. And later on, she wanted to visit her husband's grave and at least show her son where his father was buried. So she took him to Medina. This is a journey that is 500 kilometers, about 350 miles. She went and she underwent this hardship of journey. She stayed 1 month, showed him the grave, and on her way back she died between Makkah and Medina. And so Rasulullah was orphaned from his mother at the age of 6. So we have that he was orphaned before he was born from his father, and he is orphaned at the age of 6 from his mother. Historians and Islamic scholars talk about this in great detail. There is wisdom of Allah in this, because later on there is no motherly or fatherly influence in conducting or carrying the orders of Allah, because one could be influenced by a father or a mother in terms of obedience. It could contradict what Allah wanted him to do, and therefore he is deprived from both of them very early on, so that the devotion would be to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam, this is an explanation that scholars gave. And so after the death of his father, he went to his grandfather, who took care of him for so many years until he was 8 years old. Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather, again died, and after that his uncle took care of him, Abu Talib. Abu Talib took care of him and protected him for a very long time, from the age of 8 to the age of 40. In fact, up to the point of the first period of Da'wah. Abu Talib protected him from Quraysh for this much of lengthy time. He extended all the protection that he could provide, and Quraysh could never get to him, to Rasulullah ﷺ, because of Abu Talib. And it's only after Abu Talib died that Quraysh was able to physically abuse and mistreat the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, there is a year called Am al-Huzn, the year of sadness. That's the year in which his wife Khadija radiallahu anha died, and it is the year of where Abu Talib died. There is an incident in the Seerah. This is prior to becoming a prophet. Rasulullah was 12 years old. He went with Abu Talib, his uncle, on a business journey to Syria, and they met a monk on the journey called Buhayra. He readily recognized the Prophet and said, while taking his hand, this is this Christian monk who spoke. He said, this is the master of all humans. Allah will send him with a message which will be a mercy to all beings. His uncle asked, how do you know that? He replied, when you appeared from the direction of Aqaba, this is a place, all stones and trees prostrated themselves, which they never do except for a prophet. I can recognize him also by the seal of the prophethood which is below his shoulders. Like an apple, we have got to learn this from our books. This is the Christian monk saying this, recognizing the Prophet ﷺ as a prophet because of all these signs. And then he instructed Abu Talib to go back and take him to Makkah and make sure to protect him, because people shall attack him. So he instructed him, and in fact, the report says that Abu Talib discontinued the journey and he went back to Makkah on the advice of this monk. Rasulullah ﷺ, apparently in early years of his youth, he had no particular job, but it was reported that he worked as a shepherd in Bani Sa'd. Bani Sa'd is this tribe where Halima elevated him. That's where she raised him. He worked as a shepherd. And scholars, subhanAllah, talk a lot about this type of work of a shepherd. A shepherd is the one who takes care of the most innocent, which are the sheep and the goat. They know nothing. They cannot harm themselves, they don't harm anyone. Yet they are the most vulnerable to be harmed. And so Rasulullah ﷺ, Allah Azza wa Jal, taught him how to take care of the weakest, the most innocent, in preparation to lead humanity and to be merciful in leading humanity. This is what the scholars say. Historians also agree in ascribing to the youth of Muhammad ﷺ modesty, virtuous behavior, and graceful manners. He was the most honest in his talk and the mildest in temper. He was the ideal of manhood. He possessed a spotless character. This is before revelation. In fact, it is reported that Rasulullah ﷺ, when he was a shepherd in Mecca, with another one of his age, and he's maybe 12, 14 years old. Apparently he has heard some songs coming out of the city. He was in the outskirts. And so he asked his friend to take care of the sheep so that he goes and sees what is this. As of course he became closer and closer, the sound became clearer and clearer. And he really wanted to see. But he said, as soon as I arrived near the gates of Mecca, I sat down and I slept. He said, by Allah, I did not wake up until the next morning. So when he went back to his friend, he told him, so what did you see last night? He told him exactly the story. But he said, I will try again tonight. Please keep your eye on my sheep. And he tried to again go to that party where the noise was coming from, but Allah refused. And he made him again to sleep. And apparently it happened the third time. At the third time, Rasulullah ﷺ relayed to his friend, and this is in the Seerah, I understood that Allah does not want me to immerse myself into such a filth. And therefore, I have vowed never to try again. This is reported in the Seerah. We know that at the age of 25, he went to Syria as a merchant for Khadija, who sent with him her servant, Seerah is called. And Seerah had a keen eye. So on this journey, he noticed the treatment and the behavior of Muhammad ﷺ with others. Apparently Khadija was very wealthy, and he was the one who brought the best of everyone before him. She used to give money to people to go trade for her and come back. But this time what Muhammad was brought was more than anybody else. In addition to the report from the servant, she knew what man he was. And so she sent a proposal for marriage from him. She was 40 years old and he was 25. And he married her. And subhanAllah, the marriage with Khadija was significant for the first period of Islam. Khadija was wealthy. She spent her wealth in support of da'wah. She spent herself in supporting him morally. And so Rasulullah ﷺ, many years later, after her death, he used to recall, subhanAllah, it is reported that he used to slaughter a sheep, cut it in pieces, package it, and send it to the friends of Khadija. Years later, when he was asked, why is it Khadija? Nobody else, no woman, other woman was created after Khadija. He said, yes, but Khadija is what she is, and he listed what I just said, that she used to stand by me when people deserted me, she used to help me with her wealth and herself for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why it is Khadija that is in my heart. So after this, of course, Rasulullah, we know at the age of 40, the revelation came to him. Before that, he stayed for a long time. He used to desert this life of Makkah, the contamination that existed. He used to withdraw himself and be by himself in contemplation and in looking, searching for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is at that point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the revelation via Jibreel alayhi salam in this cave of Hira, which is near Mecca. And we have covered this already in the previous session about the Quran. We know that the first revelation is Surah Iqra, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let me go back, inshallah. How much time should I spend on? Is it?
How long?
No, I don't. I probably wrap up in 5 minutes, inshallah.
10 minutes.
Okay. So what we will do, inshallah, in the next session, and I will, brothers and sisters, recommend that you get this book, the Seal Nectar. I believe we have it downstairs in the library. This is the most beautiful book that probably exists in English. That is a concise summary of the Seerah of Rasulullah. It's a wonderful book. Read it at your own time. Don't try to rush. Try to digest. As you can see, a lot of details that are so wonderful, but you will learn a lot. It will make you a better Muslim. The reason for that is a lot of what has happened to him is happening today to Muslims and to us, the hardships and everything we go through. You see mirror image, just different degrees, different variations, but in essence, it is that same struggle for the pleasure of Allah. When we are tested to stand up with what we believe in, or we give up, negotiate, merchandise. This is all things that he was subject to. And the schemes that people put at him or threw at him, the mistreatment, all of these existed. And so it will make you a better Muslim, it makes you much more comfortable and stronger to say, hey, this path already people walked it, led by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you will see the significant amount of sacrifice that was given by the Sahaba radiallahu anhu to bring Islam to us. And so this is why I recommend, I personally with a group of brothers, we took 2 years going through this book. So don't try to rush it, just take your time in going through it, and if you can, in one or more sisters together would be great, but at least read this one, inshallah. So next week what we will do is briefly summarize this first phase, which is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam making da'wah in secret. How they used to gather out of the eyesight of Quraysh to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to give da'wah to Sahaba who were the first Muslims amongst them and so forth. And then the second phase, Allah now asked him to do da'wah publicly. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called on his people, on his tribe, his relatives first. He called on them in a gathering, and it is recorded that Abu Lahab, who was a staunch enemy, he was humble, but he was a staunch enemy, he stood up, he cursed him, he humiliated him, and said that if it were not us, the Arab would depict you in pieces, but there will be time in which we will let them break you into pieces and we will not protect you and so forth. And then it tells you the patience of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is reported he did not say a single word there. Also, we have reports of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying, and they throw dirt at him. They throw all kinds of the worst thing you can imagine, of the filth that used to be in the streets of Mecca at that time. They threw it up on his honored head, and and Fatima radiallahu anha used to clean his head and cry. And these are all things that he went through, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They used to come at him to negotiate and say, you worship one day our idols, we will come and worship another day your idols, and you leave us in peace as long as you do not keep preaching. That's where this قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ surah was revealed, right? لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. I cannot negotiate on this. And there was a point in which they offered everything. They said, if you are sick, we will hire the best doctors that exist. If you are hit by magic, we will offer the best magicians or magicians that will remove this from you. If you want with this, you want to be our king, we shall make you a king over us. If you want to be the wealthiest, we shall collect all our money and give it to you. And listening impatiently after they all finished, and they thought he may accept. He said, by Allah, if you put the moon on one hand and the sun in another hand, for me to live this matter, I would never leave it until I lived to its triumph or I died in its sake. This was the response of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so throughout all of this, people were noticing. People were looking. People were coming from other tribes looking for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People came from Medina to Hajj. They used to make Hajj. And subhanAllah, Quraysh used to build a virtual wall between people who used to visit Mecca and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They used to send envoys telling them, do not touch base with this person. He's going to ruin your tribe and relationships and families. They send a message before even they come. And yet some of them came and recognized who he was. And they were enough to give this first pledge of Aqaba, which is allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This number grew, and they came the next year. And there was the second pledge of Aqaba, in which dozens of Muslims accepted Islam and returned back to Medina. Rasulullah sent people who teach them Quran, and subhanAllah, Islam took roots in Medina to the point of inviting him to Medina. And then the last one here is the Council of Quraysh. This is the last straw in which Quraysh could not take it anymore. Money didn't help. Inviting him to everything didn't help. He's still insisting on being the Prophet ﷺ and pursuing spreading of this message. So what did they decide? They made a collective decision in this House of Parliament of theirs that they have to get rid of him. Now how do we do that? They had to ask youthful people and strong people amongst them of different tribes, so that they hit him with one single hit, all of them together, so that his blood will be distributed amongst the tribe, and his family and his tribe cannot fight back. That was the scheme. Of course, inshallah, we will get to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him, and he informed him, and he left without anything happening to him. And of course, in the story of migration itself, the journey itself, there are wonderful stories that happened during that journey. And inshallah, we will review them next time. So I personally apologize for trying to condense something that is impossible to condense in one lecture. And inshallah, hopefully next time we will do a better job in maybe sectioning it into much more detail rather than two sessions, inshallah. But what I will do next time is add to the material that you have, at least you have it, inshallah, these other steps, and we will try, inshallah, to cover as much as we can the 10 years of Medina, inshallah. So if you have a question, please, otherwise please forgive me, because this is not what it is supposed to be. It is a lecture of Seerah, much, much more than what I said, inshallah. If any question, please, please.
This overview that you just went over is inshallah in that book that you mentioned.
Yes, yes, yes. It is in this book. What I will do is compile it into a summary that you can guide yourself and navigate. But I still will not let you off the hook of reading that book, and if you cannot pay for it, let me know. We'll get it for you, inshallah.
Is it
Yeah.
available in Spanish?
I don't think so. It's in English, right?
I don't think so.
I think